Hey guys, so today finally we are taking a look at a gun that I've spoke to you guys about a lot on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram, and that is the Gbls DAS rifle. But for any of you guys who don't know, this is a brand new gun, comes straight out of South Korea. The guys at Gbls have been kind enough to send me this gun. I think there's only 300 in production, so it's been pretty cool to get my hands on one of these. And what makes this gun so special is it's a mix between a gas blowback system and an AEG. So in the world of airsoft, we all know if you want reliability, consistency, you go for an AEG. You put batteries in and it'll just pretty much work the same FPS, the same rate of fire all day long. No weather dependent, just very, very reliable. But of course, they are a little bit boring. Whilst the gas blowback has the functioning bolt, the bolt stop, kind of more realistic. But of course, gas is a little bit unreliable in the cold. It can gas out if you try and do a mag dump. You lose FPS. It can be very unreliable. So this gun here is the best of both worlds. This is an AEG, it is running on 11.1 LiPo batteries, but it has a completely functioning reciprocal bolt. So to show you guys what I mean, like a gas blowback weapon or a real firearm, as you fire this weapon, it has a completely cycling bolt. So that will move backwards and forwards, traveling the full distance to then load in the next round from the magazine. Now this is clear, there is nothing in it, the mag's out of the weapon, so I can show you guys some dry firing. So once you charge the charging handle like a real weapon, you can then fire. Or in single shot. So of course, because it's got a pretty heavy full metal bolt cycling backwards and forwards, it does mean the weapon has quite a lot of recoil. Now again, just like a gas blowback or a real gun, when you have the last round fired, the bolt will then lock back. So again, the weapon is clear now, and I have an empty magazine, so everything's safe. We put this in and fire, the bolt will then lock back because there's no more rounds in the mag. So the bolt locks back, you would then of course get a fresh magazine, put that in, and you'd hit the bolt release on this side of the weapon and send the bolt home, and then you can continue firing. Now whilst we're going through the realistic features, another cool feature is this does strip like a real AR. So you simply push out the body pin to the rear of the weapon, and then you can strip the weapon down, and you have the gearbox in the lower half with the gears and the motor, and in the upper receiver you have, just like a real AR-15, you can take out the bolt there, but of course this has the spring and the teeth in it that push against the lower gearbox, so as you pull the trigger, that is what is sending the bolt backwards and forwards. So this makes this weapon pretty easy to maintain, clean. There is a lot of oil in it, as you can see on my fingers here, because having this huge bolt going backwards and forwards against those gears, of course, needs a lot of grease, otherwise things are going to burn out pretty quickly. Now another great thing about the way you can strip this, if you do get any jam BBs, you can, on the field, quite easily pop the body pin out, open it, you can then remove the bolt, and you can get to the hop-up unit and try and clear any jams in the chamber or the hop very, very easily. And then to simply put it back together, you put the bolt back in, close that over, close the gun, push the pin back in, and you're ready to fire again. Now as you can see, this DAS gun probably doesn't look like the other DAS guns you have seen so far. Now it does come with the PTS pistol grip straight out of the box. That is really cool. The guys at Gbls have been working with PTS in Korea, so it does come with a very nice pistol grip straight out of the box. But for this we have put the PTS EPS stock on, which I think everyone who's got this gun has put this on, because it does come, and I'll show you shortly, a hell of a lot of wiring. Now this stock does have a lot of space in it, so if you were getting one of these, this kind of stock is a must. I can quickly show you here. Because the MOSFET and the some of the fuses are on the outside of the cable, it does have a lot of wiring. So the EPS stock, which is renowned for having a lot of space, is definitely a must on this kind of weapon. Now the rail system at the front is probably one you recognise from a lot of videos. It was on my Tokyo Marui, and it is of course my Gbls Mark IV rail. And because this was a full-length rifle, this type of rail does suit it pretty well. Now the upper and lower receiver, I have to say, is definitely the highest quality airsoft gun I've ever come across. The finish is very, very nice, and just the weight and the strength of this, and the kind of, just the build quality is very, very impressive. If you've never held a real AR before, this is probably the most realistic thing you're going to get unless you have one of those in your hands. So the quality of it is very, very impressive. Now, the logo's on it. I'm a little disappointed the DAS logo is so big, because of course it is meant to be a very realistic firearm. People who buy this are probably going to be buying it because they want something that is as close to the real thing as you can get. So that big logo there is a little bit disappointing. Maybe it could be a little bit more subtle on future models. But apart from that, the lower and upper receiver are very, very impressive. Now moving on to some of the slight negatives about this gun so far. First off, the charging handle is very, very stiff. Of course, you only have to charge it once at the start of the game with your first mag. After that, you can use the bolt release, but it's still very, very stiff. Trying to charge this thing, you do have to be pretty strong to pull that back. It is quite heavy because, of course, charging that back is compressing the spring. So technically, you could use this gun like a spring gun. Now, there's no batteries in it now, there's no mag in it, it is empty, but I can fire and I can charge it again and I can fire. So technically, if you did run out of battery on the field, you could run around using this as a spring gun, but you'd have the biggest arms you've ever seen by the end of the day. Now, talking about some of the difficulties, that trigger is almost a 10-pound pull. So if I charge it again, you've got about 1/4 of a mil give, kind of the first stage of the trigger, and then to actually pull the trigger, you feel like the safety's still on, and then it fires. But since it's been released, the guys at Gbls have contacted us, all the guys who've received this, to tell us they are bringing out a new trigger which will just drop in, and we can test that, and hopefully it's going to reduce that trigger pull. And if it is successful, when these guns go into complete production, that will be with all the standard guns. At the moment, it is pretty stiff. Once you're using it and on the field, I can imagine you kind of forget about it, but it is quite a stiff trigger. You couldn't really spam the trigger, which again is quite realistic because obviously a real AR, you can't just hose down thousands of rounds a second, but it is pretty stiff and it probably would give you an achy finger by the end of the day. Now at the moment, this DAS rifle is only one of 300 in the world. Now the guys at Gbls were kind enough to send me this weapon for review, but if you guys want to pick one of these up, it is going to cost you around $2,500, which of course is a very high price point. In fact, it makes it, from my understanding, the most expensive airsoft gun available straight out of the box anywhere in the world. Now, there is only 300 at the moment. These are all for review and kind of beta testing. Of course, if they do prove popular and successful, the plan is, I think, to make a lot more of these in mass production, and of course, prices will drop. But at the moment, they are very, very expensive. So, is it worth the money? That is, of course, is up to you to decide. But as a weapon, I have to say, kind of moving airsoft forward as some kind of prototype, it is very, very exciting. With all fields in the world, when something new comes out, it is of course very expensive to make because they make a few of them, and it is just expensive for R&D and testing. But I have to say, if airsoft is heading this way in the future with weapons that are more and more realistic, I think it's going to be very, very exciting. Now, I haven't had a chance to skirmish this weapon yet, but I'm going to be taking it out on the field hopefully very, very soon. Of course, I do use a Tokyo Maru, which does have a few training weapon style features like the bolt release. But getting this out on the field and having to do proper drills with having to use the bolt release, charge the handle, and the way the magazines work, it is going to be very interesting to see if I can play in my usual style. So I'm pretty excited to get this out on the field and give it a try. Very, very soon I will have gameplay with this for you. I'm going to get some upgrades done to it so it runs a little bit smoother, but then in the very near future you will see this out on the field. So if you did enjoy this video and you do want to see more gameplay and more information about this weapon, tell me down in the comments below. And of course, if you did enjoy the video, don't forget to leave a like. But in the meantime guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.